A swirling black vortex tunnel, like a massive black python, forcefully shot into the Pill River, finally connecting to its deepest reaches. Whoosh! Inside the tunnel, a streak of light suddenly darted forward, following the vortex at an astonishing speed. Moments later, the darkness at the vortex's depths gradually began to brighten with a golden glow. Have we arrived? Lin Dong squinted as he gazed at the vast expanse of golden light ahead. Within that glow, he could feel an overwhelming, wild energy. This must be the Nirvana golden chi that forms deep within the Pill River. This energy feels familiar, Lin Dong murmured to himself. His mind flashed back to the day he devoured Lin Longtian's spirit. Since then, his body had absorbed some of that same golden energy. Now, it was clear to him that the energy within the Pill River and what he had taken from Lin Longtian belonged to the same source, though the Nirvana golden chi here lacked any consciousness and wasn't controlled by anyone. The pressure is starting to mount. Lin Dong's gaze swept across the sides of the vortex tunnel. As he delved deeper towards the riverbed, the pressure increased, causing his skin to tighten slightly. The Pill River was no ordinary river. Its waters were not the typical kind found in other rivers, but rather the liquid form of Nirvana chi, Nirvana water. The pressure it exerted was immense, and even someone like Lin Dong, a Nirvana stage expert, couldn't easily ignore it. Buzz, buzz. With a thought, a faint azure glow enveloped Lin Dong's body, easing the pressure significantly. As his mastery of the Azure Dragon transformation continued to grow, Lin Dong's physical body had become as formidable as those who had endured the sixth Nirvana tribulation. Encased in azure light, Lin Dong wasted no time. He moved, surging out of the vortex tunnel and plunging into the riverbed's spreading golden light. Hiss! The moment he emerged from the tunnel, his body sank abruptly. The massive pressure infiltrated him from every direction, even dimming the azure glow surrounding his body. Sensing the situation, Lin Dong's expression grew more serious. His body trembled slightly as layers of azure scales quickly surfaced, covering him like armor. The moment the scales appeared, the pressure eased. Only then did Lin Dong look around. He had reached the depths of the Pill River, yet there was no sign of mud or silt here. Instead, the golden light spread across a space roughly 10 feet wide, while beyond it lay a domain of dense darkness. Lin Dong's gaze quickly focused on the large expanse of golden light ahead. Here, the golden light and the Nirvana chi-formed waters of the river coexisted side by side, distinct and unmixed. So, this is the Nirvana golden chi, such wild and heavy energy. Slowly, Lin Dong extended his dragon-scaled hand into the golden light. It felt slightly viscous to the touch, and the violent fluctuations stung his hand. Let's begin. With a slight sigh, Lin Dong didn't hesitate further. He stepped forward, walking straight into the spreading golden light. Buzz. The moment Lin Dong entered the golden light, the scales on his body emitted a faint humming sound. Azure light flared, resisting the corrosive force of the wild energy. As his body was completely engulfed in golden light, Lin Dong sat down cross-legged, his expression serious as he formed hand seals. Waves of suction spread from his body. Boom. As soon as the suction began, the previously calm golden orb erupted, boiling over as golden bubbles exploded around Lin Dong. Countless golden rays shot towards him with overwhelming force, piercing into his body like lightning. One after another, the golden rays surged into Lin Dong's body, and the moment they entered, they burst into countless golden mists, frantically permeating his organs and tissues. Hiss. As the golden mist touched his internal organs, Lin Dong's face flushed with heat. A sharp hiss escaped through his gritted teeth, his breath trembling slightly. The golden mist was like searing drops of liquid fire, scorching everything it touched. His meridians, muscles, even his bones turned faintly red, as though they were being roasted. What wild Nirvana golden chi, but this alone won't stop me. Lin Dong grinned. With a mere thought, a mysterious dragon's roar echoed within him. The sound spread throughout his entire body, and wherever it reached, a faint azure light emerged on his meridians and flesh. With this light, an ancient aura seemed to awaken deep within his body. It was the aura of the ancient dragon race. The Azure Dragon transformation wasn't just a technique to toughen the human body. It could elevate one's physique to rival that of the true dragon race. Furthermore, the high-level dragon energy left within him by Qingji had triggered a profound metamorphosis in Lin Dong's body during his practice. It was well known that no matter how tough a body was externally, its internal organs remained vulnerable. Once an opponent's power infiltrated the body, the resulting injuries would be fatal. However, the Azure Dragon transformation strengthened not just the exterior but also the internal tissues, gradually making them as indestructible as the body itself. This was the extraordinary power of the Azure Dragon transformation. Lin Dong was certain that if he mastered this technique, his body would rival that of the true dragons. With Lin Dong's resilient body, absorbing the violent Nirvana Golden Chi wasn't as challenging as it might have seemed to others. Sizzle. As the golden mist continued to strike his flesh, the pain subsided considerably. The mist began to merge with his muscles and bones. In that instant, Lin Dong could clearly feel a torrent of wild energy surging like an enraged dragon through his blood and bones. As the Nirvana Golden Chi tempered Lin Dong's body, a significant amount of it was also absorbed by his primordial energy. The energy flowing through his meridians grew increasingly powerful in silence. Noticing the changes within his body, a faint smile slowly curved on Lin Dong's face. For a Nirvana stage expert, Nirvana Golden Chi was indeed a rare and potent elixir. Not only did it strengthen the body, but it also significantly enhanced one's primordial energy. The speed of this increase far surpassed normal cultivation by many times over. A remarkable place. I can't afford to waste this Nirvana Golden Chi. Lin Dong's eyes opened slightly as he gazed at the vast circle of golden light covering several dozen feet of the Pill River's depths. The circle was saturated with dense Nirvana Golden Chi, and Lin Dong's eyes now gleamed with greed as he stared at it. Thanks to the Azure Dragon transformation, Lin Dong wasn't just capable of withstanding the immense pressure. He could also absorb the Nirvana Golden Chi that would have been lethal for other Nirvana stage experts. Although the process was still painful, it was something Lin Dong could endure. But the pressure here is getting stronger. Glancing at the dragon scales on his body, Lin Dong noticed that the once bright azure glow had dimmed. The pressure in this place was steadily increasing. Still, after experiencing the benefits of the Nirvana Golden Chi, Lin Dong had no intention of giving up so easily. As for the intensifying pressure, he was curious to test his body's limits and see if he could withstand it. Devour! With a shift of his hand seals, a black hole formed in the center of his palm. In the next instant, the power of devouring surged outward. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. As the devouring force emerged, the already boiling golden light circle churned even more violently. Streams of golden liquid, moving at astonishing speed, rushed madly into the black hole in Lin Dong's palm. As the vast amount of Nirvana Golden Chi poured in, a faint golden glow gradually appeared on Lin Dong's face, giving him an almost divine appearance from afar. His aura, too, began to rise steadily under the effects of this devouring process. At the bottom of the dark Pill River, the golden glow surrounding Lin Dong was strikingly bright. However, the only sound that pierced the oppressive silence was the occasional crackle of golden bubbles bursting from within the pressure-filled riverbed. In the expansive golden light, a faint figure could be seen sitting cross-legged. Around this figure, thick streams of Nirvana Golden Chi flowed continuously, pouring into his body with a faint, splashing sound. Peering into the golden light, the figure became clearer. He was clad in azure dragon scales that faintly reflected the light, though a hint of red could be seen between the gaps of those scales, along with a faint scent of blood wafting out. Lin Dong had been enduring at the bottom of the Pill River for 3 days. During those 3 days, the pressure around him had become increasingly intense, as if the entire river's pressure was converging towards him. The unrelenting increase in pressure was enough to invoke a deep sense of dread in anyone. Even though Lin Dong was protected by his dragon scales, blood still seeped from his pores under the immense pressure. Although it wasn't yet life-threatening, if this continued, the pressure would soon reach a terrifying level. At this point, Lin Dong truly realized the tremendous cost required to absorb Nirvana Golden Chi safely at the bottom of the Pill River. No matter how fearsome the pressure became, Lin Dong's perseverance over these 3 days had been richly rewarded. As the Nirvana Golden Chi seeped into his body, he could clearly feel his flesh being strengthened from the inside out. It was as if his very muscles were being infused with power. Along with his body's strengthening, the primordial energy coursing through Lin Dong's meridians grew more potent, surging through his limbs like a roaring river, filling him with an overwhelming sense of power. In just 3 days, the amount of primordial energy he had gained was equivalent to 10 times what he would have achieved through normal cultivation. It was an astonishing figure, though not entirely unimaginable. Nirvana Golden Chi, after all, was formed from the purest Nirvana Chi. Even the tiniest strand of it held as much value as a full day's worth of training for an ordinary cultivator. However, as his body and primordial energy strengthened, Lin Dong noticed something else, something even more surprising. Within his energy core, there were several things of note. The most central item was a fist-sized dark golden yuan core, slowly rotating and continuously absorbing thick, primordial energy. Above the yuan core was a large mass of azure energy, from which the sound of dragon roars faintly echoed. The aura surged around it, occasionally coalescing into the shape of a dragon. This azure energy, of course, was the dragon chi left behind by Qing Ji. It was far too violent for Lin Dong to absorb fully. He could only allow it to naturally merge with his body as he gradually mastered the azure dragon transformation. Below the yuan core, a stream of golden light flowed. This golden light carried a profound and mysterious fluctuation. It was the spirit Qi Lin Dong had obtained after devouring Lin Longtian's spirit. In a way, it was the same type of energy as the Nirvana Golden Chi he was currently absorbing. Lin Dong wasn't entirely sure of the purpose of this spirit Qi, since it was far beyond his current ability to control. For the time being, he had left it stored in his energy core, intending to deal with it once his strength had increased. But during the 3 days of absorbing Nirvana Golden Chi, Lin Dong noticed that every time he absorbed some of the golden energy, a sliver of it would rush into his energy core and merge with the spirit Qi, gradually strengthening it. This development unsettled Lin Dong slightly. The spirit Qi had belonged to Lin Longtian's spirit. Although Lin Dong was confident that he had erased any lingering consciousness, the changes still made him uneasy. Thankfully, the growing spirit Qi hadn't caused any loss of control. It merely became more vibrant, with the once ethereal golden light becoming more solid. From this spirit Qi, Lin Dong could sense an unusually powerful fluctuation, distinct from primordial energy. Yet he could also tell that the spirit Qi harbored an incredibly destructive force. "I'll be watching closely to see what you're up to," Lin Dong murmured, focusing his mind on the spirit Qi. He wasn't too worried, though. His body housed both the mysterious stone talisman and the devouring ancestral symbol. Moreover, the ancient cosmic formation surrounded his energy core. Lin Dong was confident that nothing would be able to stir trouble within his body. Time flowed by quietly at the silent bottom of the Pill River. In the blink of an eye, 5 days had passed. While the depths of the Pill River remained calm, the river's exterior had grown far more lively. At the Pill River platform, a large group of Wild Hall disciples had gathered. On the surrounding platforms above the river, many other figures stood as well. Though most of them were focused on their cultivation, their gazes all gravitated towards the same spot, the vortex that had now been designated a restricted zone. Their gazes were filled with astonishment, for Lin Dong had already endured at the bottom of the Pill River for 5 days, showing no signs of emerging. The disciples of Wild Hall were well aware of what this length of time represented. Last year, even Fang Yun, one of Wild Hall's 4 core disciples, only managed to last 4 days before being forced out of the river, battered and covered in blood, unable to withstand the pressure any longer. But now, Lin Dong had surpassed that record. Did this mean that Lin Dong's capabilities were even greater than Fang Yun's? If that were true, it seemed that Wild Hall would be producing another remarkable individual this year, and this person had only just joined Wild Hall. Above the Pill River, Chun Zhan and Wu Dao remained motionless, but their gazes were locked on the vortex below, and their expressions carried a hint of solemnity. "That boy is really holding out." Wu Dao stroked his beard, his voice carrying a hint of undisguised delight and satisfaction. 5 days is already considered above average among the disciples from the 4 halls who undergo the Pill River baptism, Qianjin smiled. What was most impressive, however, was that Lin Dong showed no signs of emerging from the river yet, which meant he could still endure further. Thanks to his remarkable abilities, Qianjin could faintly sense a concealed presence at the end of the vortex tunnel. The Pill River is peculiar. The pressure beneath increases with each passing day, and the later days are truly the hardest to endure, Wu Dao remarked softly. "Let's wait and see. If this boy can hold on for 3 more days, his record will match that of Xiao Xiao," Qianjin smiled. Wu Dao nodded slightly. 3 days might seem short, but for Lin Dong, enduring at the bottom of the Pill River, it would require a tremendous effort. Whether or not he could persevere would depend on his own abilities. As time passed, the atmosphere in Wild Hall grew more and more lively. Disciples who normally focused on their secluded training were drawn out of their retreats, gathering around the Pill River. By the time Lin Dong had been at the bottom of the Pill River for 7 days, word had spread widely. Disciples from the other 3 halls heard the news, and Wild Hall became even more bustling, with students from the other halls frequently coming to observe. After all, the ability to endure 7 days at the bottom of the Pill River during the baptism was a feat that only a select few senior disciples in the other halls could achieve. What shocked everyone the most was that, when the 7th day arrived, there was still no movement in the vortex. The figure deep within the Pill River showed no signs of emerging. It appeared that Lin Dong might even endure until the 8th day, and the only other person in the younger generation of Dao sect who had ever achieved that was the Heavenly Hall's senior sister, EngSubs. Could it be that this new disciple, who had only recently joined Wild Hall, had the potential to rival senior sister EngSubs? At this thought, many disciples felt a stir of emotion. It seemed that this newcomer, who had won the 100 Dynasty War, truly had some remarkable abilities. As the crowd continued to wait, the 8th day finally arrived, and all of Dao sect was buzzing with excitement. However, the excitement quickly turned to stunned silence. Everyone fell into an eerie quiet when they realized Lin Dong still hadn't come out. Deep within the Dao sect's Heavenly Hall Pill River, on a platform, a graceful figure sat quietly in meditation. Torrents of nirvana chi surged out from the Pill River, swirling around her like mist, giving her an ethereal aura. Whoosh! Her serene meditation was abruptly interrupted by the sound of rushing wind from behind, causing her brows to knit slightly. "Sister, something big has happened." Before she could reprimand the intruder, a clear voice rang out. Huan, dressed in a red gown, gracefully landed on the platform, speaking anxiously. "What's the matter?" EngSubs cast a sidelong glance at her panting younger sister, her tone remaining calm. "Do you remember Lin Dong, the one I mentioned last time?" Huan asked quickly. "The one who gave up joining Heavenly Hall and joined Wild Hall instead? The champion of the 100 Dynasty War? What, has he caused trouble again?" EngSubs replied, her slender hand gliding across the azure sword in her lap, without lifting her gaze. Because of his victory in the 100 Dynasty War, he was granted the privilege of undergoing the Pill River baptism, Huan explained. He won the championship, so it's only natural for him to receive such a reward. "Why are you making such a fuss?" EngSubs responded nonchalantly. "That's not it, that guy." Huan clenched her jade-like hand, biting her lip. "That guy has already been at the bottom of the Pill River for 8 days? Oh." For the first time, a flicker of emotion crossed EngSubs' usually tranquil face. She turned her head slightly, surprised. "He's lasted 8 days?" Having experienced the Pill River baptism herself, EngSubs was well aware of the terrifying pressure at the river's depths. Even she, at her peak, had only been able to endure for 8 days. That had been the best record among the younger generation of Dao sect. She hadn't expected someone else to match that today. It seems Lin Dong truly has some real skill. "How could he compare to you, sister? You're the most outstanding among Dao sect's younger generation," EngHuan pouted. Besides, the pressure in Wild Hall's Pill River is lower than in Heavenly Halls. Still, for him to endure for 8 days is quite impressive, EngShao remarked softly. But, EngHuan hesitated for a moment before biting her lip and continuing. But that guy has been at the bottom of the Pill River for 8 days, and he still shows no signs of coming out? As soon as EngHuan said this, she noticed a brief moment of stiffness in her sister's posture. EngShao's jade-like hand, which was holding her azure sword, tightened visibly. Clearly, EngHuan's words had stirred some rare waves of emotion within her sister's heart. He hasn't shown any signs of emerging? EngShao turned her head fully now, her expression more serious as she looked at EngHuan. A lot of disciples from all 4 halls are watching Wild Hall's Pill River. They say that guy is still huddled at the bottom of the river with no signs of coming out, EngHuan said with a bitter smile. She still found it hard to believe that the guy she had once dismissed as arrogant had managed to achieve such a feat during the Pill River baptism. I see. EngShao's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly as she tapped her delicate fingers against her sword. It seemed that this time, Dao sect had recruited quite an extraordinary disciple. Sister, the best anyone has done during the Pill River baptism was lasting around 8 days, right? What if that guy's dead from the pressure? EngHuan muttered. Elder Uncle Chenjian and the others must be monitoring Lin Dong closely. If he were truly in danger, they wouldn't let it escape their notice, EngShao retorted, casting a sideways glance at her sister. After a brief pause, a thoughtful look crossed EngShao's face. Usually, lasting about 8 days is considered an outstanding achievement during the Pill River baptism. However, there have been some exceptions in Dao sect's history. Oh. EngHuan was taken aback. Back in the day, Elder Zhoutong endured for 13 days. It wasn't that he couldn't endure any longer, but that in those 13 days, he absorbed all the Nirvana golden chi at the bottom of the river. EngShao explained slowly. All of it? EngHuan was left dumbfounded. Nirvana golden chi was extremely violent. Even powerful experts at the 7th Nirvana stage struggled to absorb it. Each year, the disciples eligible for the Pill River baptism aimed only to survive an extra day and absorb a little more of the Nirvana golden chi. Trying to absorb all the Nirvana golden chi was on an entirely different level from merely trying to last longer. However, sister, Senior Zhoutong, wasn't he the one who mastered the great wilderness scripture and later stormed into the Yuan sect, killing 3 of their elders? EngHuan suddenly realized, her voice soft as she spoke. EngShao nodded slightly. Even she couldn't help but feel a deep admiration when mentioning that name. For many of the disciples in Dao sect, Zhoutong was nothing short of a legend. Alone, with just his sword, he had stormed the most powerful sect in the Eastern Mystery region, Yuan sect, slaying 3 of their elders. He had forced Yuan sect to activate their sect protection formation for refuge. Even the highly esteemed head of Yuan sect had to personally intervene. Although the final outcome enraged Dao sect, there was still a sense of pride beneath the anger. So what if it was the mighty Yuan sect? A single disciple from Dao sect could kill 3 of their elders. The relationship between Yuan sect and Dao sect had never been harmonious, and this event had undoubtedly contributed to the ongoing friction between the disciples of both sects. That guy Lin Dong, how could he possibly compare to Senior Zhoutong? EngHuan bit her lip and muttered. But what's happening right now is a fact. If he continues to stay at the bottom of the Pill River without emerging, there are only 2 possible reasons. Either he's been crushed by the pressure and can't move, or he has a plan similar to that of Senior Zhoutong, which is to absorb all the Nirvana golden chi at the riverbed, EngShao said calmly. Although I don't know how he's managing this, his potential is indeed quite extraordinary. EngHuan opened her mouth to say something, but eventually held her tongue. After a brief silence, she murmured, "Do you really think that guy could be like Senior Zhoutong?" Senior Zhoutong was a prodigy. Even if Lin Dong could absorb all the Nirvana golden chi at the riverbed, he's still far from being comparable. At the very least, he'd need to fully comprehend the great wilderness scripture before we can talk about comparing the two, EngShao replied softly. Besides, whether Lin Dong can truly absorb all the Nirvana golden chi at the bottom of the river, like Senior Zhoutong did, remains to be seen. But this matter should be nearing its conclusion soon. I'm curious as well. EngSubs turned her gaze towards the direction of Wild Hall, her eyes showing a hint of interest. She too was eager to see just how capable this newcomer, the champion of the 100 Dynasty War, really was. The area above the Pill River in Wild Hall, now one of the most bustling places in Dao sect, often saw figures streaking through the air. These individuals stood on the surrounding platforms, all fixated on one point, the black vortex at the center of the river. Lin Dong's endurance at the bottom of the Pill River for 8 days had spread throughout Dao sect, even reaching the ears of several elders, who now closely monitored the situation. After all, in this generation of Dao sect's younger disciples, only EngSubs had ever managed such a feat. The most significant detail was that after 8 days, Lin Dong still showed no signs of emerging. This scene brought a sense of déjà vu to the older generation in Dao sect because, 100 years ago, a similar situation had occurred. The individual who caused that uproar had single-handedly stormed Yuan sect. His name was Zhou Tong. Some of the elders looked distantly towards Wild Hall's Pill River, murmuring, could Dao sect be producing another Zhou Tong? Crack. At the dark and silent depths of the Pill River, faint golden light shimmered as small bubbles burst. A faint but extraordinary fluctuation rippled through the space. It had been 11 days since Lin Dong had entered the depths of the Pill River. Though Wild Hall had become increasingly restless during this time, the depths of the river remained eerily quiet. Only the slight fluctuations from the golden light indicated the presence of life. After 11 days, the once vast area of Nirvana Golden Chi, which spanned dozens of feet, had shrunk to just a few feet in diameter. However, while the area had decreased, the remaining Nirvana Golden Chi had grown thicker and denser, showing signs of coagulating. As the Nirvana Golden Chi thickened, the pressure within it had also intensified to an unimaginable degree. By this point, even a 6th Nirvana stage expert wouldn't be able to endure for long in this pressure. Crack, crack. A faint cracking sound echoed through the dazzling golden Nirvana Golden Chi, the kind of sound produced only under immense pressure. Within the flickering golden light, a seated figure gradually emerged. The figure sat cross-legged, motionless like an old monk. Azure scales covered his body, though the glow of the scales had dimmed almost entirely. Cracks were beginning to appear on the scales, indicating that they had reached their limit. The cracks oozed with a faint red, and upon closer inspection, it was revealed to be congealed blood. The dark red color was unsettling to the eye, a clear indication of the grueling toll this ordeal had taken on Lin Dong. The Pill River was indeed peculiar. The deeper one went, the more terrifying the pressure became with each passing day. After 11 days, the accumulated pressure had reached a monstrous level. If Lin Dong hadn't been cultivating the Azure Dragon transformation, he likely would have been crushed into a pulp by now. Even so, if one could peer beneath the scales, they would see that Lin Dong's skin was marred by wounds from the relentless pressure. The bottom of the Pill River was truly a fearsome place. Despite his body being covered in injuries, Lin Dong's eyes remained tightly shut. A continuous stream of devouring power emanated from his body, greedily absorbing the wild and viscous Nirvana Golden Chi. At this moment, he desperately needed this energy, for as the amount of Nirvana Golden Chi in his body increased, Lin Dong began to notice something peculiar. The most intriguing discovery was the Golden Spirit Chi in his energy core. Over the past 11 days, as he absorbed more and more Nirvana Golden Chi, the Golden Spirit Chi had grown several times in size. It had also become even more viscous, with threads of golden light flowing through it, intertwining beautifully. Lin Dong's consciousness was fully focused on the Golden Spirit Chi. As it expanded, he could sense the terrifying power it contained. This was most likely the fabled power of the spirit. It was a mighty force that could only be wielded by those who had formed a spirit within their body. This strength deeply fascinated Lin Dong, for he knew that if he could fully control it, it would become a formidable weapon in his arsenal. Hiss! The Golden Spirit Chi squirmed slightly, and countless golden threads interwove, seemingly merging with one another. As they fused, the irregularly shaped mass of spirit qi began to take on various forms. Lin Dong quietly observed the changes in the golden spirit qi, deep in thought. After all, he had yet to reach the 7th nirvana stage, and his body had not yet produced his own spirit qi. Though this energy resided within him, he couldn't control it as freely as if he had cultivated it himself. This spirit qi was, after all, foreign to him. Only by cultivating his own spirit qi would he be able to break free from the shackles of his physical body. Then, even if his body were destroyed, his spirit could still survive. However, even if he couldn't refine this spirit qi into his own life spirit, he could still transform it into something else. Lin Dong's mind raced. This spirit qi contained an extremely sharp and domineering force, and it would be a waste to let it go unused. If I can't make it my life spirit, then I'll forge it into a spirit weapon. A flash of insight struck Lin Dong. Spirit weapons were typically only formed by those who had fully condensed a spirit, but the abundant spirit qi within him should be enough to support this idea. With a decision made, Lin Dong immediately demonstrated his decisive nature. The pressure at the bottom of the Pill River was becoming increasingly intense, and the primordial energy within his body had reached the peak of the 4th nirvana stage, on the verge of breaking through to the 5th nirvana stage. Time was of the essence. Buzz, buzz. His intent swiftly communicated to the golden spirit qi, which began to writhe rapidly. Countless golden threads collided and intertwined like lightning, releasing wave after wave of astonishing energy. As the golden threads fused, the spirit qi began to shrink, but the smaller it became, the denser it grew. This process lasted for about half a day. The large mass of golden spirit qi had been reduced to a palm-sized ball of golden liquid. Condense. A deep voice echoed in Lin Dong's mind. Black devouring power surged into his energy core, aggressively enveloping the golden liquid ball. Under this influence, the ball slowly collapsed, as though being molded like dough, gradually taking the shape of a circular disc. This was an extremely delicate task, requiring precise control. Fortunately, Lin Dong was highly adept at manipulating devouring power, so he avoided any major mistakes. Under his control, the liquid-like spirit qi slowly transformed. The process was painstakingly slow, and even with the aid of the devouring power, it was clear that Lin Dong was struggling. His primordial energy was rapidly depleting, but thankfully, the continuous influx of nirvana golden qi replenished his energy, allowing him to maintain the delicate balance. Buzz, buzz. As time passed, the golden mass gradually took shape. Although still rough, it exuded a sharp and powerful aura. The black, devouring power danced over the spirit qi like a chisel, carefully carving it with focused precision. Under Lin Dong's intense concentration, the spirit qi slowly took form, releasing a terrifying sharpness. While Lin Dong meticulously forged the spirit qi, the azure scales on his body were dimming to the extreme. Cracks spread across the surface, and the immense pressure began to seep through the armor, directly pressing against Lin Dong's body. Slash. Under such pressure, lines of blood burst from Lin Dong's skin, staining his body in a horrifying red in an instant. The scales can't hold on much longer, huh? As the intense pain flared across his skin, Lin Dong became aware of the situation. His brow furrowed slightly. The azure dragon scales were one of his strongest defenses, yet even they couldn't withstand the pressure indefinitely. But Lin Dong couldn't divert his focus from forging the spirit qi, as it required his full attention. I need to speed this up, Lin Dong murmured softly, his mind quickly returning to his energy core. There, black threads of devouring power flashed through the air, slicing through the spirit qi. Shoo, hey. As Lin Dong whispered to himself, the speed of the black threads accelerated sharply. Black afterimages flickered, accompanied by the soft sound of slicing, filling his energy core. With this increased speed, the spirit qi began writhing faster, as if something was on the verge of emerging. Lin Dong's heart raced with anticipation as he watched, a trace of nervousness creeping in. Whoosh! The black threads flashed across the spirit qi, then paused for a moment. As the threads made one final pass through the spirit qi, It was like the finishing stroke of an artist, and brilliant golden light suddenly erupted from Lin Dong's energy core. The golden light surged, and after a moment, it slowly dissipated. Lin Dong's mind immediately focused on the area beneath his yuan core, where the golden light had gathered. A sharp, terrifying aura emanated from the area. As the golden light faded, a small golden object emerged. It was a palm-sized golden wheel. The edges of the wheel were lined with 8 sharp, curved blades. These blades didn't extend straight but rather arched inward, emitting a faint, ghostly glow that flickered with cold, lethal light. On the surface of the golden wheel, faint dragon patterns appeared, vivid and lifelike, as if ready to ascend to the heavens. Its aura was formidable. Lin Dong stared in awe at the fully formed golden wheel, his face breaking into a grin of joy. He could feel the terrifying power radiating from the golden wheel, a power so intense that even he was a little taken aback. This was a fearsome weapon, entirely forged from spirit chi. Though it wasn't a spiritual treasure, its power undoubtedly surpassed that of the black dragon sky roar seal Lin Dong had used before. "I'll call you the Dragon Spirit Wheel." Lin Dong grinned, letting the golden wheel rest quietly in his energy core. In future battles, this weapon would surely catch his opponents off guard. Its sharpness was more than capable of piercing the defenses of even a 7th Nirvana stage expert. Now, it's time to deal with everything outside, Lin Dong murmured to himself, withdrawing his mind from within. He opened his eyes to gaze at the viscous Nirvana golden chi around him. Despite the blood covering his face, a smile spread across his lips. He could feel the overwhelming power of primordial energy within his body. It seemed that the time for a breakthrough had finally arrived.